My wife cheated on me with her boss. Then I found out she secretly forged my signature to transfer $350, $0 of our family savings into her sister's account. Now she's demanding half of the property I've been paying for a loan. Hello everyone. Dear listeners, please share your thoughts in the comments section below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Now, let's begin the video. Using a throwaway for obvious reasons, with certain specifics modified to preserve anonymity. I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, writing about how my wife turned out to be a lying, cheating piece of work. Honestly, I thought we had a good thing going. We'd been married for 8 years, and I thought she was the one. She always played the perfect wife. Beautiful, charming, the kind of woman who could get whatever she wanted with that little smirk. But I guess I was blind to the signs, or maybe I just didn't want to see them. It all started subtly, little things at first. She'd be late coming home from work more often, claiming she had to stay late with her boss, Mark. She'd come home tired, distracted, and sometimes even a little defensive when I asked about her day. I brushed it off, told myself she was just busy or stressed, that I was overthinking. But then the text started. I'd catch her looking at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking, quick swipes and nervous glances. Nothing explicit, not yet, just enough to make me suspicious. One day I decided to check her phone when she was in the shower. I know, trust issues, right? But I was just curious. What I found was a string of messages between her and Mark, compliments about how they're perfect together, and even some pretty explicit talk about meeting up after work. My stomach dropped. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. How could she do this? I'd always believed she was loyal, that she loved me. Turns out she'd been sneaking around for months, lying to my face every single day. I didn't confront her then. Instead, I kept quiet, trying to process what I'd found. I started noticing more things. Her phone disappearing, her being more secretive about her social media, and that weird, distant look she'd get when I caught her staring at her reflection. It was like I was losing her, but I didn't want to believe it. I thought maybe it was just a fling, a mistake she'd regret, but deep down I knew it was more. I just didn't want to admit it yet. Then came the moment that shattered everything. I was in our bedroom going through some paperwork on my laptop when I noticed a strange email in her inbox. It was from her boss, Mark. The subject line read "Meeting tomorrow," and the email was about some project they were working on. I opened it and saw details about a dinner reservation at a fancy restaurant, just the two of them. That's when I saw the pictures she'd attached, a selfie of her smiling with Mark in the background. The date was just a week ago. That's when it hit me. She was sleeping with her boss. I felt like I'd been punched again, but this time I was furious. How could she lie so blatantly? How could she betray me like this? I wanted to scream, to break something, but I held back. Instead, I stared at the screen, feeling cold and numb. All the trust I ever had in her was gone. I knew I had to do something, but I wasn't sure what yet. All I knew was that my wife, my partner, had been cheating on me with her boss, Mark, and she had no shame about it. The worst part, she was demanding that I give her half of everything, our house, our savings, even my retirement fund. I was stunned. How did it come to this? I worked my ass off for years, paying for that house, building our life, and she was out there screwing around and planning to take half of it. My mind raced with anger, betrayal, and confusion. I'd been so blind, so trusting. Now I was faced with a choice: confront her and risk everything, or plan my revenge. I knew I couldn't just let her get away with this. I had to make her pay somehow. But I also knew I needed to be smart about it. This wasn't just about her cheating. It was about the betrayal of everything I believed in, and I wasn't going to let her walk all over me. That's how it all started. The moment I uncovered her affair, I realized my marriage was over, but I also saw an opportunity, a chance to make her regret every lie, every betrayal. I didn't know exactly what I was going to do yet, but I knew I wouldn't go down without a fight. Thought she could cheat, lie, and take what she wanted, but she was messing with the wrong guy. I was done being naive. It was time to get even. After I found out about Saf's affair with Mark, everything changed in an instant. I couldn't sleep that night, my mind racing. I kept replaying those texts, that email, everything I'd uncovered. It was like my entire world was crumbling. At first I felt shock, like I'd been hit by a freight train. Then pure rage took over. How could she do this? How could she betray me after all these years? I had trusted her. I had worked so hard to give her a good life, and she was out there screwing her boss, lying to my face every day. I remember sitting on the edge of the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to process what I was feeling. It was a mix of betrayal, humiliation, and a deep, burning anger. I kept thinking about the money, how I'd paid for that house, our cars, our vacations, all of it bought with my sweat and sacrifice. And now she was demanding half of everything, even though she'd been cheating on me. That made me angrier still. I couldn't believe she thought she deserved that after what she'd done. The next morning, I decided I had to confront her. I couldn't keep pretending everything was normal. I waited until she was in the kitchen making coffee, and then I just laid it out. I know about Mark, about the affair. Her face froze, that bitchy smirk disappearing for a split second. Then she threw up her hands and started lying. "It's not what you think," she said. "We're just friends, it's nothing serious." But I wasn't buying it. I told her I had proof, that I knew everything. Her eyes darted around, trying to come up with some excuse, but I saw the guilt written all over her face. She started crying, saying she was sorry, that she was stressed, that Mark was just a distraction. She said she never meant to hurt me, that it was just sex. And it didn't mean anything. That's when I lost it. I told her she was a lying bitch, that I knew she had been screwing around for months, and that I wasn't going to let her manipulate me anymore. I demanded she come clean, tell me the truth, and she finally admitted to the affair. But even then she insisted she loved me and it was a mistake. Yeah, right. That conversation was the start of a long, painful process. I felt humiliated, but more than that, I felt betrayed. How could she lie so easily? How could she look me in the eyes and deny everything only to admit it later? It was like she was trying to gaslight me, make me doubt myself. I was angry, but I also felt a deep sadness. I'd loved her. Hell, I still loved her, even though I knew I shouldn't. It was a mess of conflicting emotions, and I didn't know what to do with them. In the days that followed, I started digging deeper. I hired a private investigator, just to get some hard proof about what she was doing when she said she was working late. Turns out she was. Meeting Mark at hotels, going out for dinners, stuff I couldn't imagine her doing if she truly loved me. I also found out she'd been secretly forging my signature to transfer $350, $0 of our savings into her sister's account. That was the final straw. She was willing to risk everything, even our financial stability, just to keep her affair secret. I felt a mix of fury and helplessness. How could she do this? How could she be so selfish? I've been paying for everything, working my ass off, and she was throwing it all away. And now she was demanding half of the house, the savings, everything I'd built. That's when I realized I had to act fast. I couldn't let her get away with this. I couldn't let her take what was mine after everything I'd done. So I started planning my next move. I knew I had to be smart. Revenge wasn't just about hurting her. It was about making her realize she couldn't screw me over and get away with it. I started gathering evidence, documenting everything I could find about her secret meetings, the forged signatures, and her financial moves. I also reached out to my lawyer, knowing I'd need legal help to protect myself and my assets. In my gut, I knew this wasn't just a fling anymore. This was a full-blown betrayal, and I wasn't going to let her walk away with my life's work. I felt like I was in a nightmare, but I also knew I had to wake up and fight. I wasn't going to let her ruin everything I'd built. My house, my savings, my dignity. The betrayal cut deep, but what hurt even more was realizing that the woman I loved was capable of such lies and deception. I was angry, but I was also determined. This was just the beginning of what I knew would be a long, complicated fight. The more I uncovered, the more I realized how deep her lies went. Wasn't just cheating on me. She was actively trying to take everything I worked for. The forged signature on that bank transfer. It wasn't an isolated incident. I found evidence that she'd been secretly siphoning money for months, transferring big chunks into her sister's account under false pretenses. I couldn't believe I'd been so blind, trusting her with my life, only to find out she was plotting to take half our assets behind my back. I remember sitting in my office, staring at the bank statements, trying to make sense of it all. $350, $0, our entire savings from years of hard work gone in a blink. I'd worked tirelessly, paying the mortgage, funding her shopping sprees, even taking care of the kids while she was out there scheming. The betrayal was staggering. I felt a sick mixture of rage and despair. How could she do this? How could she lie so effortlessly? I'd always thought she was a good wife, a loving mother, but I was starting to see a different side, one I didn't recognize. That night, I decided I needed to confront her again, but this time with more evidence. I called her into the living room, my voice cold and steady. I laid out everything I'd found, the emails, the forged signatures, the money transfers. Her face paled and she started stammering excuses. It was just a mistake. I needed the money. I didn't mean for it to get this far. But I wasn't buying any of it. I told her I knew she'd been lying, cheating, stealing from us. I told her I was done playing nice. Her reaction was classic. She started crying, claiming she was sorry that she'd made a mistake. She said she was under stress, that Mark was just some guy she was having sex with because she felt neglected, and that she didn't mean to hurt me. It was all bullshit, and I knew it. The way she looked at me, like I was some idiot who'd buy her lies, made my stomach turn. I told her she was a manipulative, selfish bitch, and that I wasn't going to let her walk all over me anymore. That's when she dropped the bomb. If you kick me out, I'll take half the house, half the savings, everything. You can't stop me. I was stunned. She's demanding half, even after all her lies, her cheating, her theft. I started to realize how far she was willing to go. I had always thought I was the one providing, the one paying for everything. Turns out, she was scheming behind my back to take it all. That's when I knew I had to do something drastic. I called my lawyer the next day, laid out the situation, and started to understand my legal options. I realized she had no right to the house, since I was the one paying the mortgage and maintaining it. But her threats made it clear she was ready to fight for her share. I also started documenting everything, screenshots of the emails, bank statements, her texts. I wanted to build a case that showed her true intentions. I wasn't about to let her walk away with everything I'd worked for. Meanwhile, I also decided to dig into her financials more. I hired a private investigator to track her whereabouts, just in case she was planning to run or hide assets. Turns out, she was secretly meeting Mark at hotels, going on trips she never told me about. I found receipts for dinners, hotel stays, even a few private getaways. I felt sick knowing I'd been paying for all this while she was out there screwing her boss and planning her escape. It was infuriating, and I knew I had to act fast before she could do anything more destructive. That night I sat alone in the dark, thinking about everything. The betrayal was so deep I wondered if I'd ever recover. I felt humiliated, angry, and deeply hurt. But beneath all that, I also felt a strange clarity. I realized I couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. I couldn't keep trusting her, not after she'd lied and stolen from us. If I was going to do this right, I had to be strategic. I had to protect myself and my kids, so I made a plan. I would confront her again with my lawyer present, lay out all the evidence, and tell her she wasn't getting away with this. I would fight for my property, my savings, and my dignity. I was done being the naive husband who believed in fairy tales, had shown her true colors, and I was ready to face the consequences. But I also knew I couldn't let her see how much she'd hurt me. I had to stay calm, collected, and ready for whatever came next. That's where I stand now. The betrayal is out in the open, and I'm gearing up for a fight. I don't know what the future holds, but I do know one thing. I won't let her take everything I've built without a war. I'm tired of being the sucker, the guy who gets played. From now on, she's going to regret crossing me. I just hope I can come out of this with some shred of my dignity intact. The confrontation I planned finally happened a few days later. I brought my lawyer with me, knowing that whatever we said or did, this had to be handled legally and carefully. Was home when I arrived, her face trying to look innocent but failing miserably. She looked nervous, probably because she knew I had everything on her, proof she couldn't deny. I could see the panic flickering behind her eyes as she saw my lawyer walk in. I didn't waste any time. I laid out all the evidence I'd collected, the bank statements, the forged signatures, the emails, the receipts from her secret trips. I told her I knew about her affair with Mark, about her stealing money, and how she was planning to take half of everything I'd worked for. Her face twisted into a mixture of anger and shock, then quickly into that defensive, bitchy smirk she always wore when she was trying to manipulate someone. She started lying again, claiming she didn't do any of that, that I was just jealous or paranoid. She said the emails and bank transfers must be some mistake, that I was misreading everything. She even had the nerve to say she was doing it all for us, that she wanted a better life, that she just got caught up in the moment. I stared at her, feeling my blood boil. My lawyer, calm and professional, cut her off. He laid down the facts, the evidence of her forgery, her secret meetings, her financial theft. He reminded her that she had no legal claim to half the house or our savings, especially since she'd committed fraud. We told her she needed to come clean or we'd take legal action. Her eyes flickered with rage, but she knew she was cornered. That's when she finally broke down and admitted some of it. She'd been having an affair, yes, and she'd forged my signature to get that money. But she insisted she was sorry, that she'd only done it because she felt neglected. That Mark was the only one who paid her attention. She begged me to forgive her, to let her stay, promising she'd never do it again. But I wasn't buying it. I looked her straight in the eyes and told her she was a liar, a con artist who was trying to manipulate her way out of this. The room was tense, silent except for her sniffles and my steady breathing. I knew I had to make a choice, whether to push her out immediately or give her some time to think. But I also realized that I couldn't trust her anymore. Her words, her tears, they meant nothing now. She'd proven she was capable of betrayal, deception, and theft. That's when I told her she needed to leave. She argued, of course, insisting she had rights, that she deserved half of everything because she was still your wife. I told her she was no wife in my eyes anymore, just a thief and a liar. As she packed her things, I felt a strange mixture of relief and emptiness. Part of me wanted to break down, to cry, to beg her to stay and fix things. But I knew that wasn't possible. She crossed a line I never thought she would, and I was done trusting her. I watched her walk out the door, her high heels clicking on the floor, and I finally felt a weight lift, though the ache of betrayal still burned deep inside. In the days that followed, I started the process of legal separation. My lawyer worked tirelessly, filing papers to protect my assets and prevent her from claiming more than she was entitled to. I also took steps to secure the house, change passwords, and tighten my finances. I knew she'd try to come back, to manipulate her way into more, but I was prepared. I was done being the victim. I also began reflecting on everything that had happened. It was a brutal lesson about trust and betrayal. I'd always believed in honesty, loyalty, and sticking together through thick and thin. Turns out, was willing to lie, cheat, and steal just to get what she wanted. I felt foolish for ever trusting her, but I also knew I had to move on. For myself, for my kids, even if that meant starting over from scratch. The hardest part was realizing how much I'd lost, years of my life, the future I'd envisioned, and the love I'd thought we shared. But I also understood that staying would only hurt me more. I couldn't keep living in denial. I had to face reality and rebuild. It's not easy, and sometimes I still wake up feeling empty, wondering how I missed all the signs. But I'm learning to accept that some people are just not who they appear to be. And I'm determined to come out of this stronger, smarter, and more cautious. I've learned that betrayal cuts deep, but it also teaches you who you really are. I don't regret the truth coming out, even if it hurts. Because now I know what I'm capable of: strength, resilience, and a resolve not to let anyone take advantage of me again. The road ahead is uncertain, but I know I'll be okay. I just wish I'd seen the signs earlier, but better late than never. The aftermath of everything hit me like a freight train. I thought I'd be able to just move on, but the truth is, the pain lingers. For days, I felt numb, like I was walking around in a fog. Every time I looked at the house, I saw her face, her lies, her betrayal. The money she stole, the affair she hid, it all played over in my head like a bad movie I couldn't turn off. I kept asking myself how I missed the signs, how I'd been so blind to what she was really capable of. I started talking to friends and family, trying to make sense of it all. Some told me I was better off without her. Others said I should go after her for the money she stole, for the emotional damage she caused. I felt torn. Part of me wanted to fight her in court, to get every penny back and make sure she paid for her lies. But another part just wanted to forget her, to erase her from my life completely. The truth is, I didn't know what I wanted anymore. I was just trying to breathe. As the legal process moved forward, I began to see the bigger picture. Was trying to manipulate her way back into my life, calling and texting, pleading for forgiveness, acting like the victim. She'd send fake apologies, tears in her eyes, claiming she'd change. But I wasn't buying it. I'd been down that road before, and I knew better now. I had to stay strong, even if it meant cutting her out completely. One day, I decided to take control of my finances. I changed all my passwords, closed joint accounts, and set up new ones in my name only. I also started seeing a therapist, just to help me process everything. Talking to someone who wasn't emotionally involved helped me see things more clearly. I realized I'd been carrying so much anger and betrayal that it was starting to eat me alive. I needed to let go, to forgive myself for trusting her so blindly, and to find a way to move forward. The kids were the hardest part. They're only teenagers, but they knew enough to sense something was wrong. I sat them down and told them the truth, without going into all the gritty details, but enough to explain that Mom had made some bad choices, and I was doing my best to fix things. I promised them I'd always be there for them, and that even though things were tough now, we'd get through it together. That was one of the hardest conversations I ever had, but I knew honesty was the only way to keep their trust. Slowly, I started rebuilding my life. I focused on my work, on my health, and on the kids. I kept reminding myself that I deserved better, better than a wife who lied, cheated, and stole from me. I didn't want to be that guy who got played and taken advantage of. I wanted to be strong, resilient, and smarter. I knew I'd be okay, even if it didn't feel like it right now. But the scars of her betrayal are still there. Every now and then I catch myself thinking about what could been, or wonder if I'll ever fully trust anyone again. It's a process. Healing isn't linear. Some days are better than others. But I remind myself that I'm still here, still standing. That's what matters. I also learned a lot about people, about how some women can pretend to be perfect, loving wives, but are really just manipulative, selfish, and willing to do whatever it takes to get what they want. I've become more cautious, more skeptical. I don't trust easily anymore, and I don't want to be naive again. That's part of growing up, I guess. In the end, I realized that this whole nightmare has taught me a hard lesson. Trust is fragile, and sometimes people aren't who they seem. But it's also made me stronger. I won't let her betrayal define me, even if it's hard to forget. I'm learning to forgive myself for trusting her, and I'm trying to find peace in knowing I did everything I could to protect myself. The future still feels uncertain, but I know one thing for sure. No matter how much I've been hurt, I'm not going to let her take away my dignity or my happiness. I'll rebuild, I'll move on, and I'll be better for it. Because at the end of the day, I'm still here, and I'm still standing. Looking back now, I realize that this whole ordeal has changed me in ways I never expected. I used to believe in the idea of loyalty, honesty, and sticking through the tough times. Now, I see how fragile those beliefs can be when someone you trust turns out to be a complete liar and a thief. His betrayal cut so deep that it forced me to everything I thought I knew about love, trust, and myself. The most valuable lesson I've learned is that you can't control other people's actions, but you can control how you respond to them. I used to think that if I loved someone enough, they wouldn't hurt me. But love isn't enough when the person you love is willing to lie, cheat, and steal. That realization was brutal, but it was also freeing. It forced me to stop blaming myself and start focusing on my own healing and growth. I've come to accept that some people are just not meant to be in your life forever. Was a chapter in my story, not the whole book. I refuse to let her betrayal define me or ruin my future. I've started making new plans, focusing more on my kids, my career, and myself. I've learned to set boundaries, to be more cautious, and to never ignore the red flags again. Trust is earned, not given blindly. The financial damage she caused is still a wound, but I've taken steps to rebuild. I've secured my assets, gotten legal protection, and started saving again. It's not easy, especially when I think about everything I lost, but I know I have the strength to move forward. The pain will fade, but the lessons will stay with me forever. Most importantly, I've realized that I don't need someone who lies and cheats to be happy. I can find happiness on my own with my kids and the things I love. I don't need a partner who manipulates or steals from me. I deserve better, respect, honesty, loyalty, and I'll find it someday. I just have to be patient and trust myself more. In the end, I want to tell anyone reading this who might be going through something similar: trust your instincts. Don't ignore the red flags. When someone shows you who they really are, believe them. Don't wait until it's too late to realize you've been played. And most of all, never forget your worth. No amount of betrayal can define you unless you let it. This experience has been one of the hardest of my life, but it's also been a lesson in resilience. I may have lost a wife, a lot of money, and a sense of security, but I gained something even more valuable: self-awareness and a renewed sense of strength. I'm not perfect and I still have wounds, but I'm healing. I'm rebuilding my life piece by piece, and I know that eventually I'll find happiness again. So to anyone out there feeling betrayed, heartbroken, or lost, remember, you are stronger than your pain. Keep fighting, keep trusting yourself, and never settle for less than you deserve. Because at the end of the day, the only person who can truly save you is you. And I'm finally starting to believe that again.